There once was a guy who was buff, who thought that he was really tough. So he picked up a ring and pulled on that thing, but is Ring Fit adventure enough? Ah, it's that time of year. The time of year where we fatten ourselves up over the holidays, only to start pledging that this year is gonna be different. I'm gonna be different. Weight loss is one of the most common New Year's resolutions, but with so many options out there, how do you know what's right for you? Do you go to your local gym? Or invest in a home gym? Maybe you can get away with just doing 100 push-ups a day? Or how about the shake weight? Well, what about this thing? This is Ring Fit Adventure, a sort of spiritual successor to the Wii Fit, and I actually first got the game as a birthday gift from a now ex-girlfriend who was probably hinting at some things at the time.
You fat and you lazy.
In a stroke of great luck though, I actually received the game in December of 2019, just a few months before the world was changed forever.
Coronavirus. Coronavirus. Coronavirus.
Coronavirus.
With no one able to go out, Ring Fit became my jam and I actually stuck with the game, for a while. As with anything though, once you lose the habit, it can be really difficult to get back into it. Next thing I knew,
Seasons change, time passes by, as the weeks become the months, become the years.
suddenly I was up a couple of pounds and clothes weren't fitting quite like they used to. I thought to myself, with my birthday once again approaching, as well as another new year, I decided that yes, this year, I will be different. So, I booted up my Ring Fit again and got my fitness journey started a little early. Real quick, I just wanted to give some background on me and a quick preface before I go into the fitness journey I embarked on. First, I'm not quite comfortable sharing my body for free on the internet yet. You'll have to check out my OnlyFans for that. So for now, while I will be talking about my experience, you'll need to take my word on the improvements I talk about. Also, I'm not a fitness guru, and so there are some limitations to my journey. I lead a fairly sedentary lifestyle as I have a desk job and make videos about video games on the side. Also, in my current situation, I don't have that much control over my diet, which honestly, I think is the biggest part of losing weight. But alright, without further ado, let's dive into this. Fitness log, day 0. Ironically, my journey started on the day of Halloween, a day typically reserved for gluttony and candy. The first thing I wanted to do was set a goal. I was around 165 pounds at the time and was hoping to slim down by 5 pounds or so by my birthday in mid-December, giving me roughly 6 weeks to lose 5 pounds. Very, very achievable in my opinion. In those 6 weeks, I was aiming to do 4 days a week at least. I probably could have forced myself to do more, but I wanted to be realistic with myself, especially considering I hadn't really exercised much in the last year. And yeah, with my goal set, I hopped into the game, booted up my old account, turned down the difficulty, just a smidge, and got to beating down some monsters with the power of my thighs.
Fantastic!
Something didn't feel quite right though. I was exercising, sure, I even broke a sweat, but things felt too easy. I hadn't earned this. This wasn't me now. This was the James of 2020. How could I possibly give you guys an honest review if I didn't put myself through the pain again? I realized then I had to make a new account. I had to restart. And thus began my Ring Fit adventure. Fitness log, day 1. So to start off my first day, I had to create
my identity.
I didn't want to lose prior progress, so I didn't delete my old account, but I couldn't be James anymore. No, not James. From now on, I will be known as Jims, and this channel will be rebranded to Jims Likes Gims. The game will first prompt you with typical questions like your age, weight, and the amount of exercise you normally get. They then make you calibrate the ring and leg strap. I can't believe it took me this long to get to it, but let's talk about the peripherals that come with the game. And honestly, it's actually a pretty interesting piece of technology. The first part is what they call the Ring Con. You can take out a Switch controller and place it into the Ring Con to use. In addition to detecting presses and pulls, it also uses the gyroscope, or the gyroscope if you're Greek, within the Switch controller to detect how your arms are positioned, whether in front of you, above your head, or otherwise. The second piece is a strap that you can velcro around your leg. You then stick your other Switch controller there, and similarly, using the gyroscope, it'll detect whether you're bending your legs or not. So then, once you're all calibrated, you're ready to start your adventure. Quick thing, there are some alternate game modes which I'll cover later, but for this main section, I'm just going to be talking about the adventure mode. Before any session, the game always asks you if you want to do a dynamic stretch. It's optional, but let me tell you, don't underrate how much a good dynamic stretch can really get your heart going. In a weird way, it kind of became the part of the exercise routine I looked forward to the least, only because it was kind of an indicator of what was to come. Then, when you first start off your adventure, you're treated with some cutscenes to set up the situation. You're just walking along one day and you come across this mysterious ring-looking thing that beckons towards you. When you pull it, it accidentally releases Drago, a dark buff daddy dragon who is looking to take over the world with muscles. You team up with the Ring-Con, who acts as your personal trainer and begins to chase after Drago. You then find yourself in a Mario-like overworld and see Drago, at the final stage. Each stage you visit will give you some sort of goal. In general, you'll need to reach a final point or defeat some enemies, but there are some different stage types to keep things interesting. Each stage is also relatively short, usually being somewhere between 2 to 10 minutes, although there are some that might be a bit longer. This makes it so that your workouts will often be a couple of stages completed in succession. The first stage introduces you to the jogging mechanics. Something interesting about the jogging is that they actually give you two options, a standard jog and a silent mode jog, in case you don't want your neighbors thinking that there's an earthquake happening. For this run, just to change things up, I did go with the silent mode jog, and I think I looked really stupid. Personally, I found the standard jog to be a bit more effective, but as long as you're moving, I don't think it makes a huge difference. Along your jogs, you might also come across obstacles you need to deal with as well, forcing you to do certain exercises and actions, essentially a form of platforming, but not as punishing. You can also pick up different collectibles that can be used for smoothies and upgrades. More on that later. The second stage introduces you to the battle mechanics, which really is similar to an old school Final Fantasy style turn-based RPG. You're able to select different exercises to attack enemies. Each exercise has its own power, cooldown, and range. And these workouts are actually pretty tough, especially since for most of these exercises, they'll actually make you hold a certain pose for a little bit. Enemies can strike back though, and if they do, you'll be forced to do an ab guard, squeezing the ring con into your abs in order to defend and minimize the damage taken. The ab guard is definitely a weird exercise to get used to. You exercise your way over to Drago and try to defeat him, only for him to escape and go on to the next world. This first world is a microcosm of all the worlds to come in the adventure. Each world might have its own themes or stories or unique stages, but in the end, most of it will kind of play out the same way. And honestly, that's the gist of the adventure game. Each day follows the same sort of routine. Dynamic stretch, play some stages, then do a cooldown stretch. And yeah, I mean, especially since I hadn't done real exercise in a while, day one was actually surprisingly tough, and I was even really sore after. Unfortunately, I think I'm gonna abandon the whole fitness log format. From here, I just want to explain the game mechanics and some of the issues I found with them. So let's start off with the exercise moves. Along your entire journey, you'll be unlocking newer and more powerful moves. You'll eventually even get access to an upgrade tree that allows you to unlock new moves. With all of these different battle moves, the game is basically putting you through a series of body weight and resistance training exercises, as well as some yoga and cardio thrown in. The moves are put into one of 4 categories: upper body, abs, legs, and yoga, each of which is also represented by a different color. Matching the color of your move with the color of the enemy you're attacking will also do bonus damage, and I think that was a pretty smart way for the game to try and tailor your sessions to certain areas of the body and create a sort of exercise plan for you. One issue is that I do think there are some moves, especially some that you earn later on, that can feel or seem not as effective as earlier exercises. So for example, things like the overhead arm spin can feel a lot less effective than the ring press, and yet that move has both better damage and range. I think maybe some form of scaling for old moves would have been a nice change, just so people could better tailor their exercises based on what they think is working for them. Although to that point, on day 4 of my journey, I was having trouble figuring out how to properly do a standing twist, which is a move supposed to work your core. However, mid-set, they actually gave me a series of helpful tips, and as a result, I was actually feeling the move in my abs, whereas in previous playthroughs, the standing twist was a move that I removed pretty early on because I thought it was useless. This leads me to what I think is maybe the biggest issue with the moves, and that is the potential gaming of the system. As a gamer, it's only natural to want to min-max and do terrible damage with as little effort as possible. Unfortunately, in this game, that means that you can potentially select moves that might not feel as effective for you physically, or maybe you're feeling tired that day, maybe you just won't put in the same effort in your form and breathing. As a result, even though you may progress in the game, you might not see those same results in real life. I guess that can happen no matter what form of exercise you ultimately choose, but this being a game and all, it can feel especially true, as you might try and cheese your way through some enemies or bosses. Ultimately though, you just need to realize that the only person you're playing is yourself.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
One other minor gripe I have around the battle moves is around healing moves. Later on, they introduce a number of moves that can be used to heal your character. Personally though, I think these are really bad from a gaming perspective, not from an exercise perspective. For one thing, earlier on, they first introduced this smoothie making mechanic which lets you heal and boost your moves during fights. The smoothies can be used prior to an attack too, so to me, I don't think it makes any sense to take up a move slot with a healing move that also uses up a full turn. This means that you effectively have a turn where you didn't exercise, but did 0 damage to the enemy, and then could potentially even take more damage right after. I personally think they should have let these exercises be new battle moves and just let smoothies be the main method of healing. Okay, so I think those are most of my points for the adventure and battle mechanics. Outside of that, you might get different challenges and quests, many of these being alternate versions of previous levels or alternate game modes. Speaking of which, Ring Fit also offers some other game modes if you want to change a pace from the story. The first is a quick play mode that lets you play through pre-made or customized routines. Honestly, I think these pre-made sets are better as overall workouts than the adventure is, but it's definitely not nearly as enjoyable. They also have these different mini-games that you can play. They aren't necessarily great or intense exercises, although some of them are pretty tough, but I do think they inspire some of the same sort of feelings you get when playing motion control games or Wii party games, and I even played some with friends in the past to pretty decent reception. There's also a rhythm game, which honestly, I think might be the toughest part of the game. It can be really intense, and holding those long notes is not easy at all. If you want to die, try this mode. And then finally, you have multitask mode, basically allowing you to freely use the ring con while your Switch is in sleep mode. You can then do exercises as you want and can add those reps to your account. There's also a glossary of health tips that they keep and reveal to you after every session, which I think is just useful for anyone who's still learning about their own health. Oh, and two final things I wanted to mention. The first is around the heart monitor. Basically, the game is able to use an infrared sensor to detect your heart rate. Definitely cool technology, but it can be a bit finicky and won't always work. Also, just a word of warning, obviously, drift can happen to any controller with prolonged use, but I do think, especially with the leg strap, that you can run into some issues. All in all, I had 23 sessions spanning roughly 6 weeks, and personally, I think I definitely felt the results. By day 5, I actually started upping the difficulty as I was starting to feel the exercises getting too easy. By day 10, I was noticing real improvements to my stamina as jogging and those different sets didn't feel nearly as tough as they did before. I do think the issue I mentioned before around the move scaling did sort of begin to show itself by around day 15 though. And with some areas of the body, in particular upper body exercises, I felt like I was plateauing pretty hard. Also, while I wasn't necessarily seeing the weight and fat loss I was hoping for, again, I think the whole thing happening around the holidays and my birthday, as well as some of the other limitations I mentioned, definitely didn't help. But really, I think I was in a much better place than I had been. I had a morning routine focused around exercise and noticed definite changes in my energy levels, stamina, and I personally think I am more toned than I was when I started. Again, check out my OnlyFans. The unfortunate thing though is that my journey ended a bit before Christmas time. Around then, I sustained an injury that put me out of commission for a little bit, and now, as I write this, my belly like a bowl full of jelly, I can only wonder to myself, will this year actually be any different? And I guess that's the answer to this video. Could Ring Fit actually replace the gym? Realistically, I think the answer is no. It's just hard to replace everything a gym can really offer, but ultimately, a huge part of that comes down to whether or not you're willing to put in the time and commitment. If Uncle Iroh was able to get yoked off nothing but porridge and a pull-up bar, then yeah, I do think Ring Fit Adventure could be more than effective exercise, especially for those who aren't that into fitness or need structure in their lives like I do. A lot of it just comes down to you and your goals. Is Ring Fit Adventure worth it? I mean, from a purely money perspective, I'd say yes. It's like $70 for the game and peripheral, and that's potentially like half a year of gym membership right there. There's over 100 stages in 20 worlds, and supposedly, after you beat the main game, they start giving you harder versions of past levels. Because of that, I do think the game should be able to give you at least 3 months of consistent exercise, potentially more, but that's up to the player obviously. If you really wanted to, there's also streamers and creators out there who use the ring to play other games, so I do think based on just value alone, yeah, the game is worth it, if you actually intend on using it. Me personally though, I mean, it's hard to say. On the one hand, I love the structure that it provides, and I love being able to work out at home. However, one of my own personal goals is just to get out of the house more, so I may start looking into gym memberships. Regardless, having undergone the Ring Fit Adventure twice now, I definitely think it can provide a lot of value to those who are looking for it. But hey, that's just me. Let me know down below what you think. Have you tried Ring Fit Adventure, and what'd you think of it? Also, let me know, what are your personal New Year's resolutions? And as usual, if you've made it this far, I truly do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the video and consider clicking some of those buttons to help a brother out. And of course, I hope you're having a great new year. Peace.